Chapter 8. We do not have a theory of optimal taxation.
The American social contract established within the U.S. Constitution requires, as all social contracts have since the days of Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, that we the people consent to surrender some of our freedoms to government authority, including that some of our money be levied or taxed in exchange for the establishment of justice, the rule of law, promotion of the general welfare, and equitable taxation. Altogether, this social contract is supposed to secure a more perfect union. However, the founders never established an optimal tax theory for funding the federal government. The 5th and 14th Amendments do promise citizens equal protection under the law, a promise included in the tax structure, but that's not a whole lot to work with. In the early years of the U.S.'s history, we left the big decisions regarding taxation, and particularly on taxing the people directly, to the states and local governments, while funding the federal government with tariffs. These federal tariffs were not implemented as a result of a sound principle. Rather, they were established because they were politically and logistically possible. The technology of the 1700s was rudimentary by modern standards. Officials only had paper and pencil to monitor and collect taxes, and they often required in-person transactions, such as those offered at seaports and highway border crossings. This strange confluence of factors led us to establish a tax system based on tariffs. Then came the 16th Amendment, which constitutionally authorized the taxing of income from any source. When the amendment passed, it was based in part upon a belief that tariffs unfairly taxed the poor, as they would directly increase the price of needed commodities. In turn, the body politic looked to shift the tax burden onto wealthier individuals, but once again, the tax policy relied more upon what was logistically possible than what was mathematically sound or efficient. The government blindly pursued the concept that the tax burden should be ratcheted up based on taxpayers' increasing incomes, and imposed a greater tax burden on those with a greater ability to pay. There is an inherent problem with that approach. Taxation should not be about the ability to pay. It should be about who most uses the systems of the government. Equitable taxation inherently means that those who make the most use out of government systems, including things like infrastructure, courts, enforcement of contracts, roads, and stable economic conditions, should pay the most taxes. If you are Walmart, for instance, you generate a lot of revenue with the help of government systems. This means you should pay, proportionally, the right amount of taxes for the use of those systems. But what Walmart pays should only be proportional to their use of government systems, as is reflected in their amount of revenue. Likewise, your local favorite restaurant should pay taxes proportional to its use of the systems of government, meaning in an equitable calculation to the amount of revenue it generates. Unfortunately, Congress has taken us down a very different path. The political urgencies and expediencies that have brought us to mathematical inaccuracies and falsehoods, such as trickle-down economics and progressive tax brackets, have only widened the wealth gap and put an untenable burden on the individual. Furthermore, historically optimal tax theories that have not been established on proper first principles have clearly not been effective. The political fight has focused on who should pay more taxes within a very narrow tax base, a tax base defined essentially by salaries. In the U.S. today, salaries amount to about $12.5 trillion or so annually. And therein, our salary income-dependent tax structure requires salaries to produce about 86% of all tax revenue, which means on average we are paying over 30% of our salaries in taxes. And the federal budget is still in annual deficit. A $12.5 trillion tax base is way too small when you consider that our cost of government in a normal, non-pandemic economy is about $6 trillion. meaning that with only taxes on salaries, we would need about a 50% tax rate on average, with no exemption on whether you earn $20,000 per year or $20 million. And with the budget ballooning in a post-pandemic world to over $6 trillion annually, the tax system's pressure on salaries is ever increasing. It's no wonder we're in this unsustainable predicament